Have you ever wondered what would happen when the prey does not act according to its instinct of fear, but possesses enough intelligence to turn the hunter himself into the target? On this barren land, the hunters of the Hadzabe Tribe are not facing just an animal, but an opponent that can read movements, remember scents, and detect the smallest mistake before humans even realize they have been exposed. The space is compressed in an unusual silence, as if everything is waiting for something to happen. And then, from the distant cliff, a roar suddenly echoes, short, decisive, as if the very one being hunted has proactively spoken first, declaring its presence in this life and death game. Here, the hunted does not flee, it observes. If you have never imagined a hunt where the boundary between hunter and prey can reverse in just a moment of lost concentration, stay. Because right beneath your feet at this moment, every seemingly lifeless trace on the ground is telling the entire story that only those who truly understand nature can decode. The hunters begin to advance into the savanna against the wind direction, not randomly, but as a calculated choice to completely eliminate body scent before it has time to spread. Bare feet touch the ground with just enough force, neither stomping heavily nor dragging. Each step is placed down rather than stepped forward, to avoid creating sound from the crisp, dry layer of decaying leaves underneath. For the Hadzabe tribe, moving is not just advancing forward, but merging into the environment without leaving any clear sign. They maintain a loose formation with the distance between each person not too close to avoid obstructing vision, yet not too far to lose connection when the situation changes. Each person is responsible for their own observation sector, continuously scanning the space rather than fixing their gaze on a single point. Silence is maintained absolutely, not out of force but as a natural reflex. Whispers are replaced by short signals, a soft tongue click, a nearly invisible hand movement, enough to transmit information without breaking the state of concentration that is kept at the highest level. One person stops very lightly, almost without creating any change in the formation. Before their eyes, hoofprints are imprinted unusually deep on the dry, barren soil, the edges still sharp, not yet eroded by the wind. A pile of animal dung not far away still retains heat, its surface not yet fully dried. A clear signal that the giant alpha has just passed by, not from early morning, but only a very short time ago. The veteran hunter kneels down, not rushing to touch the track, but first observing the overall surrounding area. Wind direction, the depth of the soil, the disturbance of the fine sand. He places his calloused hand on the ground, holding it still for a few seconds to feel the remaining moisture beneath the surface. For them, a footprint is not just a shape, but pressure, the rhythm of movement still left behind. If the sand in front of the footprint is pushed lightly in a diagonal direction, that is a sign the animal has just changed direction or reacted to an unusual stimulus. They decode the signatures of nature through the smallest details. A fresh track is not only in its depth, but also in the connection between elements. Sand grains still damp, sharp edges of the depression, no signs of distortion by insects or wind. If the distance between the hoofprints is widened and uneven, that is a sign the animal is moving quickly in a state of alertness or agitation. Conversely, shallow, even footsteps with a stable repeating rhythm indicate it is leisurely searching for food, not yet aware of any danger. But the most important thing does not lie in each individual track, but in how they connect into a complete story. A blade of grass pressed down in the same direction as the footprint, a light trail of dragged soil behind the heel, all point to the same direction of movement. The hunters do not only look down at the ground, they continuously raise their eyes to compare the tracks with the space ahead, predicting where the prey will appear next. For them, the ground is not something to be trampled, but a living map, where every movement leaves a memory, and only those who truly understand it can read it. The hunter's gaze no longer stops at the ground, but rises to read the entire space ahead like a moving painting. They are not looking for a specific sign, but for a disruption in rhythm, where everything no longer operates according to the familiar order of nature. An unusual gap between the tree canopies, a branch leaning in a direction different from the wind, or the sudden silence of background sounds that always exist, all are signals. They observe in layers, from low to high, from near to far, not focusing on one point, but keeping their vision open to detect peripheral movement. Above the cliff, the sentinel baboon appears at the highest position, not to move, but to control. Its upright posture, slow turning head, and eyes scanning in cycles show that it has not yet detected danger, but it is by no means off guard. For the hunters of the Hadzabe tribe, reading the state of the sentinel is the key to understanding whether the entire troop behind is at a safe level or has begun to suspect. The bow made from animal tendons is slowly drawn, every small movement controlled to avoid creating unnecessary sound. The iron arrowheads are not only coated with resin poison, but are also checked for adhesion and dryness, because even one uneven layer of poison can reduce the effectiveness of the shot. This is not a formal preparation, but a process that has been repeated over many generations. One hunter takes fine ash from a tobacco pipe, rubs it evenly over his skin, not only to erase scent, but also to break the body's outline when moving under the light. They understand that baboons do not just look, they recognize shapes. Blending into the gray of the cliff and the dry tones of the savanna helps them become part of the environment. This preparation does not make them stronger, but makes them harder to detect, and in this hunt, that is the deciding factor. The group of hunters lowers their center of gravity, shifting from walking to a crawling state as the distance gradually narrows. They do not move continuously, but advance in short segments, stopping to observe, then taking the next step. Every movement is checked before completion. The foot touches the ground but does not place full weight immediately, to avoid creating vibrations that transmit through the ground. They take advantage of the shadows of the large baobab trees, not only to conceal their bodies, but also to break the direct line of sight from the prey's side. The formation begins to spread slightly into an arc shape, a tactic to approach from multiple angles without revealing the main direction. The wind is constantly checked by the feeling on the skin and the movement of dry grass. With just a small change, the entire approach direction must be adjusted immediately. The alpha suddenly appears from behind a rock crevice, with no warning sign. Its body is larger than the rest of the troop, its back thicker, and its fur darker, like an unmistakable sign of power. It does not move immediately, but stands motionless, yet it is precisely that stillness that is dangerous. Its eyes do not look around randomly, but lock onto a specific area where there is something unnatural, no matter how small. In that moment, the hunters immediately stop completely, not just stopping their bodies, but stopping their breathing rhythm as well. They understand that this primate species does not need to see clearly to detect. Just one movement out of rhythm with the environment is enough. This is no longer a simple hunt, but a battle of wits, where whoever loses patience first will be the one who fails. Have you ever been in a situation where just one small decision could change everything? What was that moment for you? Please share it below. The opportunity does not come from luck, but from a very small change in the alpha's behavior. When it moves onto a horizontal branch to observe behind, its thick shoulder is exposed in a very narrow angle. Not perfect, but the only opportunity. The hunter does not rush. He observes the animal's breathing rhythm, the tension in its body, and the direction its head turns to determine whether it has truly lost focus or not. The bow is raised slowly, not in a straight line, but along the obscured angle of the foliage to avoid light reflection. The bowstring is drawn inch by inch, pausing if there is any sign from the prey. Time seems to stretch, not because it is slow, but because everything is calculated to the limit. And when the wind stabilizes, the target holds its position for a brief moment. That is when the decision is made. A light whooshing sound tears through the air, almost not loud enough to break the silence, but enough to change the entire situation. The arrow flies along the trajectory calculated in advance, embedding straight into the thick body of the large baboon. There is no moment of hesitation. The reaction comes immediately. The animal thrashes violently, its body twisting sharply in an effort to escape the invisible source of danger. But the poison from the tree resin begins to spread quickly through the circulatory system, causing the muscle groups to gradually lose control. The initial powerful movements quickly become disjointed, then slow down. A short, decisive shout rings out, not to celebrate, but to confirm the target has been subdued. There is no lingering. One hunter quickly hoists the prey onto his shoulder, and the whole group withdraws from the area along the exact route they had observed beforehand. They understand that the scent of blood will not only attract the prey's own kind, but also draw in other predators. When they return to camp, the change is not in sound, but in the energy that spreads. The children move closer, their eyes filled with curiosity mixed with excitement. The adults exchange brief glances that are enough to understand. The hunt has been successful. There is no boasting, only quiet recognition for those who have completed the mission. The processing of the prey begins right in the field, decisive and precise. Sharp stone knives are used in the familiar sequence, with no unnecessary movements. They do not use water, not because it is lacking, but because they understand that keeping the meat in its natural state is the best way to preserve its value. The facial skin of the baboon is hung on a high branch facing east, not as a formal ritual, but as a way of acknowledgement. For the Hadzabe tribe, every prey is not just a source of food, but part of the long-term relationship between humans and nature. The parts are clearly divided, with the liver and heart usually reserved for the main hunter, not as a privilege, but as necessary energy compensation. The fire is created from familiar movements, quick but unhurried. The meat is placed directly on the glowing red coals, without seasoning, without complicated preparation. The sound of sizzling fat rings out steadily, the aroma spreading through the air, a clear sign that the hunt has been completed fully. Everyone gathers, with no clear hierarchy in receiving portions. The meat is shared equally, passed naturally from one person to another. Here, there is no concept of personal ownership of food. Fairness is not discussed. It exists as a default principle, helping the community maintain cohesion over time. The flames gradually die down, the space returns to its original quiet state, as if nothing had ever happened. But for those involved, every hunt leaves a new experience, not through words, but through memories accumulated through observation and action. The Hadzabe tribe does not rely on modern technology. They rely on the ability to observe, experience, and trust one another to survive in an ever-changing environment. And perhaps that is exactly what makes their life simple, but by no means easy. If this story makes you see differently about how humans exist in nature, you can share your thoughts below. And if you want to continue exploring these authentic survival moments like this, stay with us on the upcoming journeys. There are days when they enter the forest without searching for anything specific, as if something has already been there, simply waiting to be recognized. The early light spreads evenly across the dry land, with no signal marking a beginning, no call, no spoken plan. Only the smallest movements as each person leaves their resting place, picks up a bow, checks arrows through actions repeated so many times they require no thought. Everything unfolds slowly and seamlessly. Let us follow along to see where today's journey will lead them. No one asks where they will go today. There is no map, no fixed destination. They stand and begin walking once everything is ready. The distance between each person forms naturally without arrangement. The rhythm of movement stabilizes from the very first step, not hurried, yet not slow. Every movement remains at just the necessary level, nothing prolonged, nothing rushed. They move into the sparse forest, where light filters through the canopy, creating uneven patches of brightness and shadow on the ground. Each step is placed with almost no sound. No one leads, yet the direction remains steady. Each person keeps enough distance to observe, neither overlapping nor separating. Every movement continues without the need for clear adjustment. The terrain gradually shifts from hard ground to patches of low grass mixed with dry shrubs. The pace does not change. No step pauses to adapt. Every change is absorbed into the way they walk. There are no unnecessary movements, no repetition. Everything remains in a steady, consistent rhythm. There is no verbal confirmation, yet their direction shifts according to those traces. The pace slows slightly. Above, a very brief sound appears and stops, not repeating a second time. No one looks up, yet the spacing between them adjusts subtly to maintain a wider field of view. The traces on the ground and the movement above continue to exist together within the same rhythm of motion. One person slows very slightly, just enough for those behind to notice. On the ground are small footprints, scattered but still fresh. Nearby, a few blades of grass are pressed down, not yet risen. Above, among the low branches, a few leaves still tremble faintly. There is no clear movement, but enough to remain within observation. No one looks at a single point. Everything is held together at once, undivided. The footprints begin to form a clearer direction, no longer scattered. The ground shows brief pauses, not deep, but enough to suggest uneven movement. Above, occasional fleeting motion appears among the branches. Brief, not enough to determine numbers. They do not change pace, only maintain direction, not moving closer toward the sounds above. Other traces begin to appear alongside them, larger hoof marks, deeper impressions, crossing the earlier trail. A kudu has passed through this area. There is no separation between the two types of signs, no clear choice, only an expansion of observation, holding both within the same flow. Above, there are still brief movements. Below, clearer tracks. Both exist without excluding one another. The wind shifts slightly, grass leaning in a new direction. Above, a quick movement among branches creates a short sound, then silence. Ahead, an open space between tree trunks holds larger traces. No one moves directly into it. Their direction adjusts slightly with the wind. No clear pause, only a change in positioning. The sound above appears again, this time lasting slightly longer before splitting into multiple directions. A troop of monkeys moving. Not fast, but not still. Below, the larger tracks remain uninterrupted, holding a steady direction. They do not follow the sounds above, nor leave the tracks below, only maintaining movement between the two layers of signals, without accelerating or closing distance directly. Their pace slows. Each person checks their arrows while still looking forward. Above, the sounds thin out as the monkeys move farther away. There is no pursuit, no sudden change. Below, the larger tracks become clearer on softer ground. The spacing between them widens slightly to maintain a broader field of observation. There is no signal of decision, yet their direction no longer follows the sounds above. They remain lower, closer to the ground, leaving no clear traces on the grass. Every movement stays minimal. No step is separated from observation. The tracks below continue uninterrupted within their movement. The larger traces become clearer. The ground is lightly disturbed at stopping points. Branches at shoulder height are bent in the same direction. Above, there is almost no sound left. Only distant movement, no longer affecting direction. They do not move straight into the center of the trail, but approach at an angle with the wind. The formation adjusts naturally, leaving no gaps. Their pace slows almost to a stop. Each step is placed after a short moment of observation. No one stands completely still, yet no one moves continuously. The distance between them gradually narrows without major visible change. Only one layer of traces remains, continuing to guide them. Above, a clearer movement appears among the lower branches, not as distant as before. A large baboon stops on a horizontal branch. Its heavy body lowers the branch slightly, enough to reveal its form clearly. Broad shoulders, a thick back, slow but firm movement. The distance is not far, with no major obstruction. For a brief moment, everything above becomes clearer than at any previous point. No one looks up longer than necessary. There is no change in direction, no step toward it. The sound above ceases after a brief motion and does not return. The branches settle back into stillness. No signal remains long enough to follow. The tracks below continue steadily. The movement resumes without interruption. Ahead, a clearing between tree trunks holds light longer than usual. There is no clear movement, but the low grass at the edge is not entirely still. It tilts slightly, then holds for a brief moment, as if something had just passed through but is no longer there. Above is completely silent. No sound remains long enough to track. All signals become fewer, less defined. The wind weakens. It does not change direction but loses stability. No new signs appear, yet none disappear entirely. Everything remains in an uncertain state, not advancing, yet not stopping. They do not change position abruptly, only maintain minimal movement, as if waiting for a clear signal to emerge rather than searching for it. A slight curve appears in the grass ahead, not caused by wind, holding its shape longer than usual. Beyond it, part of a body appears between two trunks, not fully clear, only a dark mass holding light differently. The kudu stands still for a brief moment. No movement, no additional sign. The entire space holds a single layer of motion. The person in front raises his bow. There is no separate preparation, no repeated adjustment. The arrow is held steady for a very brief moment, not prolonged. When distance and direction are sufficient, the bowstring is released. There is no second movement, no repetition. The action occurs as a continuation of the preceding observation. The kudu reacts immediately upon being struck, not with a sudden leap, but with a change in movement rhythm. The first steps maintain speed, then gradually shorten, not in a straight line, only moving away from where it stood. The grass behind it holds clearer traces than before. There is no loud sound, no abrupt motion. No one moves immediately. They remain in place briefly before continuing in the new direction. The pace does not increase. There is no haste. The new traces merge seamlessly with the previous ones. No clear beginning or end, only continuation. They gather around the prey once it is fully stopped. There is no clear division of roles, yet each person begins their familiar task. The meat is separated and placed in distinct areas on the ground, never overlapping, never mixed. What needs to be kept is handled immediately. No step is repeated, no adjustment made multiple times. Every action flows continuously, as if the entire process has been remembered beforehand without thought. fire is made from nearby dry branches. Quickly, without complexity. The meat is placed directly over hot embers. No seasoning, no formula, only heat and time. They sit in a circle, without order or fixed distance. Food is shared without assigning portions. No one keeps more, no one eats first or last. Everything unfolds in a familiar rhythm. The sounds gradually diminish as preparation ends. Only the fire and small movements remain. There are no long conversations, no retelling of what just happened. The hunt is not separated as a distinct event. It is simply part of the day's flow, no more important than any other. When the food is finished, nothing is kept. There is no preparation for the next day, no storage. Everything ends in the moment it occurs. The rhythm slows, not shifting into a different state, only continuing as before. There is no clear beginning, no defined end. As the light begins to change, the area around the fire grows quieter. No one leaves immediately, yet no plan is spoken for the next day. What is needed for today is enough. Nothing more is prepared. There is no urgency to continue. Everything remains in a state of sufficiency, neither lacking nor excess.
Each person enjoys it.
There is no clear conclusion to the passing day. No sign marks it as success or failure. only a sequence of actions continuing, then ending at the right moment. And if one keeps watching, it may become clear that not everything needs more to be enough. If you wish to continue following journeys like these, stay and observe, because not every day does the forest reveal what it holds.
Afia kokoko ini afia
na pia bebe yako anachitama na kono
aba kocho
shina tita
katina ubena heme
ali ni kwa kosena kao
shakwa ne eseme tama na ko mana koma na kita hoshako Boko
chia boko
ya kwa mana hapa kuchia hapa wapi sasa hapa mbwa boko tu ndio tabaka atunga kwa kuna kitu asuka meya kama mchikoti naye za kwa
Andi ya pite.
Na wapo pokwe ha. Ya no.
Dawn glides slowly across the surface of the swamp, thin light slipping through the low mist to reveal patches of dark mud, still marked with old footprints and flattened streaks of grass not yet risen back. The space holds its lingering stillness, broken only by the faint sound of water touching the shore and scattered insects in the humid air. They stand in a loose line facing the water, no one making unnecessary movements, only slight tilts of the head to sense the wind drifting across the low reeds, carrying with it the cold, briny scent of something that has just left the water. One man steps forward half a pace, the tip of his arrow lowered, lightly touching the soft mud where a dragging mark curves in a heavy arc. They do not speak, yet their attention converges on a single point. Their eyes move slowly across each detail, from a footprint pressed deeper than usual to blades of grass pulled to one side. Everything is still fresh, not yet erased by the wind. In that prolonged silence, there is only the faint ripple of water rising and fading quickly, as if a movement has just slipped beneath the surface. They begin to move along the water's edge, maintaining even spacing. Each step is placed slowly and firmly, avoiding patches of soft mud that might produce sound. Bare feet touch the ground and lift again, leaving almost no new trace. The wind holds steady from the left, and they adjust their direction accordingly, so their scent does not drift toward the water. Their gaze never lingers too long away from the ground, continuously scanning old tracks, flattened grass, and sections of mud recently disturbed. A hand lifts slightly, and the entire group stops immediately. No call is made, only a practiced synchronization. Ahead, a cluster of low grass is bent in a direction that does not match the wind, and beside it lies a fresher drag mark. The mud still moist, not yet dried. They lower their bodies, the tips of their arrows gently parting the grass in front without revealing any large movement, only subtle shifts in posture. Near the water's edge, a faint sound emerges and disappears, enough to make them pause for a beat longer. The traces become clearer as they advance a few more steps. A long trail cuts across the mud, wide and deep, unlike that of any small animal. On both sides are footprints pressed heavily into the ground, spaced farther apart than usual, indicating a heavy body moving slowly, yet with certainty. The surrounding grass is swept aside, some stalks still bent and not yet dried. And at the water's edge, the mud is churned into a darker patch, where movement has taken place very recently. They pause longer, their eyes shifting from the drag marks to the water's surface, which appears still but not entirely calm. A faint ring of ripples spreads and fades, too subtle to make a clear sound, yet unmistakable. The wind remains unchanged, and they hold their positions, not moving forward, only adjusting their stance. The arrow tips rise slightly. Every motion is minimized, as if the space around them is tightening, and beneath the dark surface of the water, something remains present, without needing to reveal itself to be known. A flock of water birds bursts up from the edge of the swamp almost at once, not flying high but scattering low in multiple directions. Their wings beat rapidly, then fall silent just as quickly, leaving an unusual emptiness on the water. The group halts the moment it happens, heads tilting subtly in the direction the birds have gone. Their eyes lower toward the water ahead, where a strip of mud near the edge has just been lightly disturbed, its form unclear, no longer in its original state, and the nearby grass still trembles faintly, though the wind has not changed. They do not advance, only shift their positions in very small steps to maintain the wind's direction, ensuring their scent does not drift toward the area of recent movement. The water returns to a flat surface, but no longer as calm as before. Small ripples appear and vanish, without any clear pattern. In the prolonged silence, there is no sound strong enough to define anything, only the sense that something is very close, yet does not need to emerge to be perceived. They come to a full stop, the distance between each person widening slightly, forming a curved line embracing the water's edge. Each holds a different angle of view, yet remains part of the whole. The arrow tips rise slowly, not abrupt, yet without hesitation, Bare feet shift lightly onto firmer ground to avoid making noise, and the soft mud ahead is completely avoided. No one steps into a place where the ground might give way. A subtle shift passes through the entire group as they hold their position longer than usual. No one moves, yet their posture tightens, as if the space before them is gradually narrowing. Their eyes remain fixed on the dark surface of the water, where there is no clear sign, yet it is no longer neutral. In that stillness, the wind direction remains steady, but it is no longer the only thing being maintained. Every bit of attention converges on a single, unseen point. They begin to move closer, each step shorter and slower than before, placed down and held longer, as if testing the firmness of the ground before taking the next. The old footprints and flattened grass grow denser near the water's edge, no longer separated by gaps. Everything overlaps, suggesting repeated movement within the same area. The water ahead remains flat, offering no clear reflection, completely concealing whatever lies beneath. The distance tightens further, yet no one crosses the limit. They maintain their curved formation, each arrow tip shifting subtly with the slightest changes on the water's surface. A patch of mud near the edge compresses slowly, not from a step, but from a force beneath. And immediately after, a small ripple spreads outward, then halts abruptly, as if restrained, neither expanding nor fully disappearing. The water no longer holds its steady stillness. A dark mass moves just beneath the surface, slow yet more defined than before. It does not reveal its shape, but its size is unmistakable. They stop at once, neither retreating nor advancing. The arrow tips lift slightly higher. All attention is fixed on a single point. The tracks and grass around them are no longer observed. A dark portion of a back glides just beneath the surface and vanishes, this time leaving behind a wider ring of ripples that spreads slowly and heavily. There is no sound of impact, yet the pressure is clearly present in the space. They hold their ground, but their posture shifts, their weight leaning more forward. The distance between them and the water's edge remains unchanged, yet it no longer feels as safe as before, and any next movement could happen without warning. They remain still through a longer stretch of silence. No further movement comes from the water, no new sound emerges, yet that very silence makes everything heavier. The arrow tips hold their direction, neither lowered nor trembling. Bare feet press firmly into the ground. No one adjusts their position. The spacing remains fixed, as if even the smallest change could break the fragile balance being held. The water suddenly breaks in a strong, brief motion. Mud and water are flung upward in a low arc before falling back immediately. It does not last, but it is enough to reveal the exact position. In that instant, they react in unison. The arrow tips snap upward in the same direction. Their steps advance a short but decisive distance. There is no call, no hesitation, only a single coordinated movement, compact and forceful, before the water closes again, returning to stillness as if nothing had happened. A heavy body surfaces just beneath the water and then stops, no longer moving. They do not rush in immediately, but observe for a brief moment longer. The arrow tips lower slowly, no longer held in the same ready state. The wind continues to drift across, but it is no longer adjusted for. The space, once tense, begins to open again, leaving only the faint sound of water lapping against the shore, and the mud gradually settling back into place. They focus on processing the food right there on the spot. There is no clear division of roles, yet each person takes part in a familiar way. The portions are separated and placed into neat areas on the ground, not mixed together. What needs to be kept is set aside, and what is not needed is discarded immediately. Every action proceeds continuously. No step is repeated, no movement is adjusted multiple times. Each task is completed as it is performed, keeping the entire process seamless and uninterrupted. After the basic preparation is finished, they begin getting ready to use the food right there. A few dry branches are gathered from around the area and arranged into a small pile. The fire is started quickly and simply. The flame gradually forms, not too large, but enough to maintain steady heat. The food is placed directly over the fire or near the hot embers. There are no tools or fixed methods. The distance is constantly adjusted according to the heat. The surface changes color slowly, the outer layer gradually transforming as the smell spreads into the air. Throughout the process, the atmosphere remains natural. There are only brief exchanges, stretches of silence, and just enough attention to monitor the food over the fire. There is no haste, yet no unnecessary delay. Everything flows continuously, from preparation to cooking, with no clear boundary between stages. Just a smooth, simple, and steady progression. When the food reaches a suitable point, they begin taking it off without any signal. Those closest pick it up first and naturally pass portions to others nearby. There is no fixed order, no clear arrangement. The food does not remain in one place, but moves continuously among the group. Some begin eating as soon as it feels right, while others continue adjusting their portions over the fire. The rhythm is uneven, yet not disconnected. The food is broken into smaller pieces before being eaten, and almost always a portion is passed to someone else. There is no invitation or request. The action repeats naturally, like a habit long ingrained. The surrounding sounds grow softer. The earlier focus fades, replaced by simple reactions, brief exchanges, and comfortable silence. No one creates the atmosphere. It forms on its own. There are not many choices in the meal. What is available at that moment is everything.
The body is tired, but the mind feels more settled.
As the food gradually runs out, the rhythm of activity shifts. Some people stand up earlier and move lightly around the area, while others remain seated a bit longer. There is no clear moment of ending. The meal does not stop abruptly. It slows, thins out, and ends when there is nothing left to continue. The remaining fire burns gently, requiring little attention, and the surroundings retain the same simplicity as at the beginning.
Time.
There is no clear sign that a significant activity has just taken place. Only a few small traces on the ground that will soon fade with time. The entire process, from beginning to end, is not divided into separate stages. Preparation, cooking, and eating unfold within the same space and rhythm. There is no emphasis, no distinct endpoint set apart.
Each person enjoys it.
For them, this is not a special moment that needs to be highlighted. It is simply a familiar part of the way they live, where everything happens at the right time, is fully used, and ends as naturally as it begins. When the water returns to stillness, all traces gradually disappear, the surface closing as if no movement had ever occurred. Yet that rhythm does not stop. It simply repeats in another way, in another place, with similar movements. If you want to continue following journeys like these, from lion hunts, baboon hunts, to other dangerous encounters, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next parts.
ai qua nó ngana ko hako tabe ngana kuita tabe ngana ko kweli kiki yako atako ngana ko anakum thokosa hitsa wakwa mo imeyitsa hitsa ota mngashiye isageleza ngana ke athone but ayizwabi wasekwe kuisana koma Hadzabe atangba qoba kwathi shiba kumbitsi kodwa kukutu ade ikhuluma tswa no ba ikani
ni yako kwa te ko kada ta je ka sa amu da ta
ถ้าฝากก็บ่าวหาก็เสมเนี่ยพัดถ้าฝากก็หาสาเบกว่าหากว่าก็ถ้าฝากว่าจะเสมถ้าฝากแล้วก็นั่นไอ้ชิบนั่น
Bita. Yako mukwati katania.
I tell you, I don't know. I saw it there. Tell me.
a ku se a khaita wo ite bi
Ate ya pego ma pego.
chu ne be chu ne ama be na ama gwa ko sta
kalanga na vita itsatu kwa mko Tanzania motalang ikitiyo bati ta kukukwiti kama omaka ota oma anzu omaka tuwa wa
Tukitiye ne hats umegogo kwa ita ahito isamithaya qada gogo chikotsia nan azo ba gogo ba osefa ako kwa mana
party tan i tena I au pe a pa ni e ama tena da lai ma na ota mai sabu ko tama
Amana bebi buda bebi azabiti na mama kwebe azabiti na
waya bena
ishi no bita alu haba ikha asa bicha ikamen atim ishi
malakata ta so chame
na sabo etobe kutingi chadele
tu ya si obe wa mama sa itasamete wa ikos Sana ko te ama ko kukuha mat.
Ebucho.
Abi ipana kote.
Kuat kete ko coba ko tengok kuat kete ko kha beto ono ba khala ko ngon. Nisha coba ko takat ko tengok usapana. No elas ko beto ko tak ko sana ma ku Tanzania ko ya sebe. Alu ya tahu. Kat ite ya. Alu tampo ka bi puro ko sakwa. Amana ka chabi. Ay tama ko. Wangani aku isa tatonga ko akusina.
Kwa kata kuka kata bitaba usap.
Across the wide savanna, when the tracks of a kudu are still fresh on the ground, other movements begin to appear within the same area, and not all of them belong to the prey they are tracking. On the African savanna, the Hadzabe Tribe begins tracking a kudu antelope, an important food source that sustains the entire community. But this area is not theirs alone. Lions can appear at any moment. Follow today's journey to see what awaits them ahead. Will they be able to keep their prey within the territory of the savanna's most powerful predator? The early light spreads low across the dry grass as they begin moving without making any clear sound, maintaining a steady distance and always traveling against the wind. Hoofprints stand out clearly on the ground, grass pressed down, not yet risen, and a few low branches shifted in the same direction, all forming a clear path of movement. They do not stop long, only adjust their position and continue forward. Each step keeps a steady rhythm, their gaze lowered, and the entire group moves as a unified body, closely following the trail stretching ahead. They move across the savanna, tracking the footprints of an adult male kudu. The hoof marks remain clearly visible on the ground, the low grass pressed down, and disturbed low branches indicate the animal passed not long ago. They maintain a slow pace, keeping a reasonable distance between each person and always moving against the wind to avoid detection. No one moves faster, no one breaks formation. Every movement remains steady and continuous. The chain of tracks ahead remains clear. Shallow hoofprints continue across the dry ground in a steady direction. Patches of pressed grass appear scattered but sufficient to maintain the trail. They do not stop for long, only adjusting direction based on the tracks and the slight shifts in the wind. The entire group maintains its rhythm, making no loud sounds, with no unnecessary movement. After patiently tracking for some time, they spot the kudu moving across an open grassy area ahead. The distance remains far enough to avoid detection. They slow down and hold their position, not advancing immediately, not making any sudden movement. The entire group maintains formation, observing the animal's movement. One person slowly raises his bow, holding a steady posture and waiting for the right moment. There is no haste, no unnecessary movement. When the distance and angle are precise enough, the arrow is released. The kudu immediately accelerates, moving a long distance across the open area. New tracks begin appearing more densely on the ground as it runs, while they quickly resume following the freshly formed trail, maintaining distance and direction. kudu continues moving a considerable distance after being struck. Fresh tracks appear continuously on the ground, the spacing between them becoming uneven. Some patches of grass are pressed more heavily, indicating a change in speed. They do not close the distance too quickly, but continue following at a steady pace, maintaining direction and formation, their attention fixed on the ground and the path ahead. They continue tracking until the signs become heavier and more concentrated in a specific area. The kudu finally collapses after a long stretch of movement. They approach without sudden motion, maintaining a reasonable distance until confirming the animal can no longer move. Hours of tracking and focus come to an end here. The entire process unfolds continuously, with no step omitted. As they begin preparing to process the prey, unusual sounds arise from a distance, intermittent but clear enough to signal a change in the environment. Some birds emit repeated warning calls. The surrounding space no longer holds the same steady state as before. They pause briefly, not continuing their current actions immediately. Large footprints appear on the ground, deep and distinct, completely different from those of the kudu. The spacing between them is wider, and their direction leads toward the group's location. These are characteristic signs of a lion. They do not scatter, nor do they move hastily. The entire group holds position, observing the surroundings. A male lion appears at the edge of the open grassland, maintaining distance but keeping its eyes fixed on the prey. It moves slowly, each step controlled, neither advancing too quickly nor stopping completely. The distance between both sides remains sufficient to clearly observe each other's movements. They quickly adjust into a unified formation, with no one standing alone. There is no panic, no scattered movement. They hold their position, controlling the distance and facing the lion. Each small step is deliberate, neither moving too close nor retreating. The space becomes tense as the distance remains unchanged for a period of time. Both sides maintain observation. They continue holding formation, not separating, not leaving gaps. Every movement is carried out simultaneously and with control. The lion continues observing, shifting positions slightly, but not advancing further. The distance between them remains stable. Neither side breaks the balance. After a period of observation and maintaining position, the lion stops, then gradually withdraws from the area. It does not accelerate, nor does it make any sudden movement. They do not pursue, nor do they immediately change formation. They hold position until the distance becomes safe. The situation ends without direct confrontation, though the group remains focused before continuing their next steps. Once the situation settles, they remain in place briefly, scanning the surroundings to ensure no further significant movement. No one leaves formation immediately. There is no rush. The spacing between individuals remains consistent as their gaze continues scanning the ground and low grass, where the large tracks had appeared. After confirming the area is safe, they return to the prey, maintaining their pace without accelerating. The kudu's hoof marks remain clear on the ground, now interwoven with the lion's tracks. They approach in a controlled manner, keeping formation steady before beginning the next steps of processing. They place the animal on a clean area and begin processing each part in a familiar sequence. There is no overlap in actions. Each person handles a specific part. One prepares tools, another separates main portions of meat. Completed parts are placed aside, not mixed. Every action continues smoothly with no repetition. The meat portions are evenly divided, tied securely with coarse bindings, and prepared for transport. Each person carries a corresponding share. There is no discussion, no repeated adjustment. The entire process maintains a steady rhythm, keeping everything organized and clear, with nothing left behind. They begin preparing for the next step. Some gather dry branches nearby, selecting pieces of suitable size to maintain a steady fire. Others arrange stones into a small circle to retain heat. No movement is unnecessary. Every action has a clear purpose. The fire is started from small sparks. They gradually add dry branches, keeping the flame steady without flaring too strongly. Some portions of meat are placed over the hot embers for immediate consumption, while others are set aside. The area becomes a clear center of activity, where everything continues in a steady rhythm. They sit near the fire, maintaining a moderate distance, not forming a closed circle, yet keeping stable positions. A few exchange brief remarks about the tracking process and approach. The sentences are short, not repeated, focused only on what has occurred. Light smoke rises into the dry air, blending with the smell of meat roasting over hot embers.
The body is tired, but the mind feels more settled.
The wind moves through the low grass, carrying heat from the fire outward. There is no noise, no excess movement. Everything unfolds slowly and steadily. The meat continues to be processed or set aside. There is no major change in pace, only a maintained state of stability after the main part of the hunt is completed. When everything is prepared, they sit together without needing much exchange. Each person holds their position. Tools are set aside, no longer in use. The fire becomes the central element in the open space. There is no sign of urgency to leave, only a natural continuation after a long day of movement. The outcome of the day is clear. They carry the food they have obtained while maintaining the same organization and movement as at the beginning. There is no separation between individuals. Every decision continues to rely on unity and accumulated experience from many journeys across the same land.
Each person enjoys it.
The Hadzabe people do not rely on modern technology, but on observation, experience, and mutual trust. Elements maintained through repeated movement across the same terrain, allowing them to adapt to the ever-changing savanna. They continue preparing for the next movements, checking tools, adjusting how they carry their supplies, and keeping everything ready. There is no break in the sequence of actions. The journey has not ended, and the movements ahead will continue in the same rhythm. And if anything remains after what has just happened, you may leave your thoughts below and continue following, as journeys like this are still unfolding.